A Florida Republican state attorney is strongly criticizing the ongoing effort by Governor Ron DeSantis to redraw long-standing judicial circuit boundaries. Dennis Ward, a chief prosecutor overseeing the 16th Judicial Circuit, is raising concerns about what DeSantis is doing, calling it a political maneuver to prevent suspended Democratic prosecutors Andrew Warren and Monique Worrell from winning in the upcoming elections. And remember, he suspended both of them, replacing them with sycophants. Now, Worrell has already said she's running again. Warren has not made that public declaration. This consolidation study shows that reevaluating the current judicial circuit configuration is a rational response to the state's growing growth. Now, this is what DeSantis is saying since establishing the 20 judicial circuits in 1969. Yeah, that's what they're trying to say. But the reality is, we know that's all BS. Joining us right now is, from Orlando, is Monique Worrell. Glad to have you here. Again,
thank you for having me. Glad to be back.
The sheer pettiness of Ron DeSantis. This is somebody who will do anything to secure power, even if it means screwing the will of the voters. And let's remind people, you didn't win 50.5% to 49.5%. You got nearly 67% of the vote. Clearly the people where you are wanted you to be their state's attorney.
Yeah, absolutely, Roland. So there were 397,000 people who elected me to become state attorney of the 9th Judicial Circuit. And essentially what DeSantis has done is overturn the will of the voters yet again. He did it to Andrew Warren 1 year before he did it to me, and he's done it to various Democrats elected to their positions as school board and other positions throughout the state. So because it is such obvious political gamesmanship going on here in the state of Florida, I was actually surprised today when I saw the article where a Republican state attorney called the governor out for doing it again. He knows that it would be very difficult for the appointed state attorney that he put in both my seat and Andrew Warren's seat to win elections. So he is gerrymandering the court districts in the same way that he gerrymandered the congressional districts, to which the court said, no, you have basically ensured that Black votes won't count. So what you've done with gerrymandering the congressional districts is unconstitutional. He's trying to do the same thing with the court districts to water down the Democratic vote so that it would be impossible for myself or Andrew Warren to be reelected in 2024.
So explain to people what this redrawing means and how does it water down? Explain that.
So there are, Florida has shown itself, unfortunately, to be a red state, but there are strong blue pockets within that red state. Central Florida, where I am the elected state attorney, is one of them. Tampa, Hillsborough County has been kind of purple, but Andrew Warren was elected there twice. Jacksonville just elected a Democrat as mayor for, I believe, the first time in its history. So there are blue pockets. And what is consistent about these blue pockets is that they have rejected Ron DeSantis in those blue pockets. So in true form, he has retaliated against those areas by unseating their elected officials. Now, if this gerrymandering goes through, and let me tell you, it's a strong if, because there is very little that the governor has asked of the courts or of the legislature here in the state of Florida that hasn't actually happened. The fact that he's able to be governor while running for president, he changed the law to allow that to happen. The fact that he could make what happened to Disney retroactive. He changed the law to allow it to happen, and the legislature went along with him in allowing that. So there's very little that he's wanted that hasn't happened. And if this gerrymandering goes through, what will actually happen is that he will consolidate a circuit like mine, the 9th Judicial Circuit, with red circuits, and that will mean that it will be hard for Democrats to be elected in those circuits.
Questions from our panel. First off, Niambi. Start with Larry. Larry, you're there in Florida, so Larry, you go first.
Yeah, thank you, Roland. And so I live in the district. So, and I'm really concerned. Obviously, I've been following this in terms of some of what's happening recently with the governor, and certainly we talked about gerrymandering the congressional district and what's happened recently in that case. And so, as someone who lives in the district and someone who follows politics, can you talk about? I mean, obviously, you start off with this criticism of saying that you were suspended, for being soft on crime, which obviously that's not the case. But can you talk about broader about what this means? About historically, Republicans have talked about the importance of, local government and letting, people, whoever makes the decisions in that jurisdiction, the voters, et cetera, make their own decisions. Can you talk a little bit more about the contradiction of that historical narrative? Small, local government, let those individuals make those decisions. And then this overreach we've seen recently, and this obviously when we're talking about this case, and obviously also what happened with the congressional district.
Yeah, so what you're seeing is the hypocrisy in modern day democracy, because essentially Republicans will say and do whatever is right for the time. You can't say that you believe in law and order and then change the laws that exist so that they can suit you better, right? That's hypocrisy. You can't say that the criminal legal system is being weaponized and then weaponize that very system against political foes yourself. Right. So what we're seeing is hypocrisy, and that is them saying, we don't want big government. We don't want big government. But there's nothing bigger than a government where the Republican governor comes in and starts suspending Democrats that have been elected by the people. And yes, to the point that you made earlier, soft on crime is ridiculous. We've been smart on crime in the Ninth Judicial Circuit. What has come out in the lawsuit that I filed against the governor last week is that we have had the lowest violent crime rate under my administration that has been in the entire last 10 years, right? In the entire last 10 years, not the last two administrations or so, but the last decade in this circuit, my administration has seen the lowest crime rates. So it's just hypocritical. It's not based in fact. It's not based in evidence. And that's essentially what my lawsuit against the governor has stated, is that he has used unconstitutional grounds for my removal, and it can't stand.
Niambi.
So thank you for the work that you're doing and continuing to fight this autocratic move. But I wanted to ask, what do you see as the sort of spillover effects of this? Because we know once we violate a norm, even though DeSantis views this as his discretion, when he did this to State Attorney Warren and now you, but also the other 20 plus officials that he's removed from office, what do you see as the spillover effects? Because we already see some states investigating deriving powers like the one that DeSantis is using to abuse people that he views to be in his way, such as yourself. How do we step away, right, or step back from this kind of precedent if we see a norm violator like DeSantis using this to great effect in his home state to consolidate power?
Unfortunately, what we're seeing is the end of democracy. And I think that this will continue because now that he has shown that he can suspend people without any consequences, even the judges who will hear my case have to fear in the back of their minds that if they don't hand him the decision that he's asking for, then they too could be suspended or removed. And where does it end? So if we've given him this sort of authoritarian power, where does it end? No elected official will be safe, because if they cross the governor, then they can fear removal. And he's running for president. So we thought the January 6th insurrection was something in trying to overturn the will of the voters. You've already had an individual who has shown that he has no respect for the will of the voters.
Mustafa.
Monique, thank you for standing up for justice continually. This really reminds me of around 1877 in the South, when we're coming out of the Reconstruction period and people began to extract the rights of Black folks. I'm curious. In this moment, we've seen Ron DeSantis reaching down on the local level to exert his power. What role does the federal government play in helping to address some of these egregious things that we see going on, if at all?
So we know that in the case against Andrew Warren, Judge Hinkle, the judge out of the federal court in that area, said that while he believed that everything that DeSantis was doing was illegal, that he was powerless to stop him. So I believe that it's going to be for the Department of Justice to step in and stop him from these violations, because he is literally in a dictatorship.
Indeed, indeed. Well, look, bottom line is you have to fight this stuff tooth and nail, and it's going to be fought in the courtrooms. He has to be exposed, and most importantly, to everybody who's watching, you also fight this at the ballot box by denying what he absolutely wants. Monique Worrell, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.